Hello and welcome to Pride on Five. I'm Das Kapital and I'm joined by an incredibly talented performing artist, musician, and so much more. Please welcome Mix Blouse. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
Very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. And you do a lot of things. Oh, sorry, please.
No, I was saying thank you for having me.
Oh, no, of course, it's my pleasure. Like it's always good to interact with you. I've been historically we'd bump into each other at festivals and we'd see each other once in a while. I play your music quite often. But it's nice to be able to sit down, obviously.
Yeah.
And how would you introduce yourself as someone with so many facets for what you do as a performing artist and a musician, but you also do you do brand work, you do kind of like modeling things, you do a lot of different stuff. So tell me a bit about this.
I don't even know how to define what I do really. I generally think of myself as a writer because even with music, I'm basically a songwriter.
Right.
So a lot of the work that I do outside of music generally involves writing. So I definitely define myself as a writer fundamentally.
Right, and that makes sense. Especially like it's always nice to see artists who view aspects of themselves through a particular lens like that. Like as a writer, like I relate because I see myself as someone who just through everything I do, I see myself as this kind of like almost like a remixer. I see myself as this like very particular type of creative where like I take input and I reinterpret it, and like it makes sense when you then put it back through the music lens.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And throughout your years releasing music, you've played with sounds from like particularly like a very South African sound palette. Like it's very global, but there's this element of kwaito, there's been electro, there's been house. Like how does South Africa inform what you write, what you create?
I don't know how to divorce myself from that South Africanness, I grew up in a township. So I think like kwaito is, I don't know, like it's built in me, I wouldn't know. Basically what I do is rap, but like that flavor, it just, I think it comes naturally, it doesn't feel definitely doesn't feel forced for me. And when I don't do it, that feels forced.
I think with the right people involved and the right reasons. Again, you're coming at this from the right angle where it's you make what you want to make and that you don't really have to answer to anyone. And I think if stuff like that does come together, it will happen quite organically.
Generally what guides me with the song making process, which I think is why there's such like a variety of sounds and influences in my music. I'm generally guided by how much the beat touches me. If I'm into the beat, then it works.
Absolutely.
So I think it would be the same story with Amapiano. Like, there's a lot of Amapiano that I listen to and I'm like, this sounds like the other song I heard the other day.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't jump on something like that. It would have to be interesting in some sort of way.
In the last year, what have you learned about yourself? What has changed? Last year, 2 years, let's call it that.
What's changed? Well, what I did learn about myself is that I'm a survivor, really.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, like there was so much that was planned. There were, like I had a bunch of festivals here in the country booked. I had a tour booked in Europe, and everything just fell away. And it was crazy because I was working on Elementality, the album, when the pandemic hit. And I just decided to put it out early in the pandemic because who thought we'd be here at this point in time?
Right.
But everything just like sort of stopped. And I just had to survive. And I did it. I'm here. I've started performing again, which is great.
Yes.
It really does feel like a kind of like starting over for me.
Yes.
But, I'm taking it as it comes. And like I said, I think I learned that I'm really just a survivor.
100%. What does Pride mean to you? It is Pride Month, and as a South African, as an artist, and in terms of where we're at with visibility, what does Pride mean for you now here in South Africa?
What does Pride mean for me now in South Africa? I mean, I really don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know, but I mean, I think like for me, just like the opportunity to exist, being the person that I am, that's great, you know. That's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think being a queer artist anyway has its own disadvantages, but I think I wouldn't take that back. So to be able to exist in that space unashamedly, I think that's really awesome. It's a great place to be in.
And as much as there always needs to be, I mentioned earlier about like the public and the scene at large needs to change to make more room for queer artists. We really are fortunate to live in a time that is opening up in some way, even if it's not the most open it could be. It's amazing to be able to go online, to be able to go to events and see more representation across the industry at large, entertainment at large, seeing people that I would never have thought would interact, seeing everyone kind of coming together, even if it's just within the social circles of Johannesburg and Cape Town. That's a start. That's at least, it's a foot in the door, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like the way that I kind of think of it is like, I mean, there's so many queer artists in South Africa, and I think a lot of people are not really aware of that because, you know, shout out to the promoters that book us, you know. I think for many of them, it is a brave step to be introducing their audiences to queer artists who are not afforded the space. But I also think it's just the beginning, you know. Maybe what Mixed Blouse is here to do is not be Lil Nas X, but to be that person whose presence will make it possible for a Lil Nas X to emerge.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's generally how I think of it. It's about, I mean, people are creatures of habit. So people are not used to seeing a queer artist who's not doing something that they expect. You know, like whenever I meet people and I tell them I'm a musician, a lot of the time they expect me to be a singer. Like, they expect me to be an R&B artist because that's what they used to write when they see something like me. So it does become a little bit jarring when they realize, oh, you're making, what is this that you're making, you know? So I genuinely do think of myself as someone who is a kind of a bridge from a place where this cannot exist to a place where it's like, some kid sitting somewhere is looking at me and thinking, I can do this, you know, because I didn't have people like me that I looked at and thought, oh, this is possible. So to be able to do that for someone else that I don't even know, that's great for me. It's a happy place for me. Yeah.
Is there anything exciting that you'd like to specifically tell us about from these things you're working on or working on? Is there anything you can tell us? If not, that's fine.
I do have a collaboration that I'm really excited about. It's with a queer producer. I can't say who it is, but it's a really exciting track. And
cool.
I'm just happy to be working with a queer South African producer who I think is going to actually blow a lot of people's minds.
Sandy, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of like, you know, the usual? Do we want to do a shout out? Where can people find you? All of that kind of stuff.
I mean, people find me on streaming platforms. It's Mixed Blouse. On social media platforms, it's Sandy Blouse, SANDI Blouse. Thanks for the conversation. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
5FM, bringing the